Welcome back. If this is your first time here, this channel is simple. At the end of your day, when the noise has settled and the world has finally gone quiet, we take a book and we walk through it together. Slowly. No rush, no agenda, just the ideas, delivered at the pace of someone who wants you to actually absorb them. So get comfortable. Let your body get heavy. And let's spend the next little while putting something worth keeping into your mind before you sleep. Tonight's book is one that doesn't get nearly enough attention outside of Japan, where it has sold millions of copies and sat on bestseller lists for years. It's called The Courage to be Disliked, written by Ichiro Kishimi and Fumitake Koga. The title alone stops people. Courage to be disliked. Not courage to be brave or strong or successful. Courage to be disliked. There is something in that phrase that either immediately resonates or immediately unsettles. And either reaction means it has already touched something real. This book is written as a dialogue, a conversation between a young man and a philosopher. The young man is angry, skeptical, and hurting. He has heard that this philosopher teaches something radical, that anyone can be happy, that the past does not determine the present, that change is possible right now, not someday. And he has come to argue, to push back, to test whether any of it is actually true. What unfolds over 5 nights of conversation is one of the most honest, challenging, and ultimately freeing explorations of human psychology you will ever encounter. It draws on the work of Alfred Adler, a contemporary of Freud and Jung, who has been largely overlooked in the West, despite the fact that many of the ideas we now associate with modern therapy and coaching trace directly back to him. So settle in. This one is going to ask something of you, but it will give back far more than it takes. Let's start with the idea that the young man pushes back on hardest. The philosophers claim that trauma does not exist, or more precisely, that the past does not cause the present. This feels immediately wrong. Of course the past affects us. Of course what happened to us shapes who we are. We have an entire culture built around this idea. Therapy, memoir, self-help, the language of healing. All of it assumes that our wounds come from somewhere behind us, and that understanding that origin is the path to freedom. Adler, as interpreted through this book, says something different. He says we do not suffer because of what happened to us. We suffer because of the meaning we have chosen to attach to what happened. And we choose that meaning, often unconsciously, because it serves a purpose. This is called teleology, the idea that human behavior is not caused by the past, but is directed toward a future goal. We are not pushed by our history. We are pulled by our intentions, even when those intentions are hidden from ourselves. Here is a simple example the book uses. Someone who claims they cannot leave their house because of anxiety. The Freudian view would say the anxiety was caused by something in the past, a trauma, a wound, a formative experience. The Adlerian view asks a different question. What does the anxiety allow this person to avoid? What purpose does staying home serve? Perhaps it keeps them safe from failure, from rejection, from the terrifying possibility that if they went out and tried, they might discover something about themselves they are not ready to face. This is not about blame. Adler is not saying the person is making it up or should simply decide to feel differently. He is saying that the story of being controlled by the past is itself a choice, and that recognizing it as a choice is the first step toward freedom. This leads to one of the book's most confronting teachings, the idea that unhappiness is also a choice, not in a cruel or dismissive way, not in the way that tells someone in genuine pain to just cheer up, but in the deeper sense that we sometimes choose unhappiness because unhappiness is useful to us. The young man in the book resists this fiercely. He says he did not choose to feel inferior. He did not choose to feel like he doesn't measure up. It happened to him. The philosopher responds gently, but without giving ground. He asks, what would happen if you gave up your sense of inferiority? What would you be required to do? What would you no longer be able to avoid? Because here is what Adler observed. A person who feels inferior has a very powerful excuse available to them at all times. I would try, but I might fail. And if I fail, it will prove what I already fear about myself. Staying in the feeling of inferiority keeps that risk at bay. It is painful, but it is safe. This is called a lifestyle in Adlerian terms. Not lifestyle in the sense of habits or routines, but the fundamental way a person has organized their understanding of themselves and the world. And Adler says the lifestyle is chosen, usually in early childhood, usually without full awareness, but chosen nonetheless. And what is chosen can be chosen differently. Now let's talk about what the book calls the separation of tasks. Because this is where things become deeply practical for everyday life. The philosopher teaches that an enormous amount of human suffering comes from failing to separate your tasks from other people's tasks, from taking responsibility for things that are not yours to carry, and from allowing others to take responsibility for things that are yours alone. Here's how to identify whose task something is. Ask, who ultimately bears the consequences of this choice or this outcome? If you choose to study or not study, you bear the consequences. That is your task. Your parents wanting you to study is their task, their concern, their feeling. But the actual studying, the actual choice, belongs to you. If someone dislikes you for being honest, their dislike is their task. Their emotional response to your honesty belongs to them. What you do with your honesty belongs to you. This sounds almost too simple, but apply it to your own life for a moment and notice how much mental and emotional energy you spend on other people's tasks. Trying to manage how someone feels about you, contorting yourself to avoid someone's disapproval, living in anxiety about judgments that belong entirely to someone else's inner world, changing who you are to fit an image of what you think others want to see. All of that is you doing other people's tasks, and it is exhausting, and it doesn't work, because you cannot actually control how anyone feels about you. You can influence, you can be kind, you can be thoughtful, but the final feeling, the final judgment, that belongs to them. It was always theirs. The courage to be disliked takes its name from this teaching. The courage required to separate your tasks from others' tasks, to do what you believe is right, to be who you genuinely are, and to allow other people the freedom to respond however they respond, including with dislike. That freedom, theirs to dislike you, yours to continue anyway, is the foundation of genuine confidence. Not the confidence of needing approval, the confidence of not needing it. At this point in the book, the young man asks something that many readers are probably thinking. If I stop caring what others think of me, won't I become selfish? Won't I hurt people? Won't the whole fabric of human connection fall apart if everyone is just doing whatever they want, regardless of how it affects others? This is where Adler's philosophy of community feeling becomes essential. Adler believed that the goal of human development is not individual happiness in isolation. It is what he called Gemeinschaftsgefühl, a German word that translates roughly as community feeling or social interest. The sense of being genuinely connected to others, of caring about the well-being of the whole, not just yourself. He said that psychological health is not about freedom from other people. It is about the right relationship with other people. And that right relationship is one of equals. Horizontal, he calls it, rather than vertical. Most of our relationships, Adler observed, are organized vertically. Someone is above, someone is below. Someone is better, someone is worse. Someone is the praiser, someone is the praised. Someone is the authority, someone is the subordinate. And vertical relationships, even when they feel warm and positive, carry a hidden cost. Because if you are receiving praise from above, you are also vulnerable to criticism from above. If you are dependent on someone's approval, you are dependent on their disapproval too. You have given them power over your inner state. Horizontal relationships are different. They are built on respect between equals. Not the pretense that everyone is the same in terms of experience or skill or knowledge, but the deeper recognition that every human being has equal worth, equal right to be here, equal dignity. And from that foundation, encouragement becomes possible. Not praise, which Adler distinguishes carefully from encouragement. Praise says you did well, implying that I am in a position to evaluate you. Encouragement says, I see your effort, I believe in your capacity, I am with you. It requires no hierarchy. It requires only genuine care between equals. Let's spend a moment on the concept of self-acceptance versus self-affirmation, because this distinction is one of the quieter gifts of the book. Self-affirmation is what most of us are taught. Tell yourself you are capable. Tell yourself you are enough. Repeat positive statements until you believe them. Present the best version of yourself, and gradually that version will become real. Adler and this book have no interest in self-affirmation, not because confidence is bad, but because self-affirmation requires you to pretend, to perform a version of yourself that may not reflect where you actually are right now. And that performance, however well-intentioned, is a form of dishonesty with yourself. Self-acceptance is different. It is the radical practice of acknowledging exactly where you are, exactly who you are, without inflation or deflation. Not, I am capable of anything if I try hard enough. But I am this person, with these strengths and these limitations, and from exactly here I can begin. This is far more stable ground than affirmation, because it doesn't depend on the story being good. It just depends on the story being true. And from truth, real movement becomes possible. Not the movement of pretending you are already somewhere you are not, but the honest, grounded movement of someone who knows where they are starting from. The book moves toward what the philosopher calls the courage to be normal. And this is one of the most quietly radical ideas in the entire dialogue. The young man has spent the conversation wanting to be special, wanting to be recognized as exceptional, as remarkable, as someone who stands out. And the philosopher has been gently, persistently asking him why. Because underneath the desire to be special, Adler says, is usually the fear of being ordinary. And underneath the fear of being ordinary is a deeper fear, that if you are not special, you have no value, that your worth is contingent on your exceptionalism. The philosopher says the courage to be normal is the hardest courage of all, harder than the courage to be disliked, because it requires you to believe, truly believe, in the value of your ordinary existence. To find meaning not in being remarkable, but in being present, in contributing, in connecting, in the small, unremarkable, irreplaceable texture of a human life lived in genuine contact with the world. This does not mean abandoning ambition or growth. It means untethering your sense of worth from your achievements. It means being able to say, even in a completely ordinary moment, I am here. I am enough. this is enough. Now let's come to the concept that the philosopher saves for last and which the young man resists the longest. The idea that the meaning of life is contribution. Not contribution in the grand sense of changing the world, or leaving a legacy, or being remembered, but contribution in the most intimate and immediate sense. The feeling, in any given moment, that you are of use, that your presence here makes some small difference to someone or something. Adler believed that the deepest human unhappiness comes from excessive self-focus, from the inward spiral of a person who is constantly evaluating themselves, constantly measuring their worth, constantly asking whether they are enough, whether they are liked, whether they matter. And he said the way out of that spiral is not to find the right answer to those questions. It is to stop asking them, to turn outward, to ask instead what you can offer. What small act of care or honesty or presence might make this moment, this exchange, this relationship slightly better? This is not self-sacrifice. It is not martyrdom. It is the discovery that when you are genuinely focused on contributing to something outside yourself, the painful self-consciousness that makes life feel so heavy simply has less room to operate. You cannot be fully absorbed in helping someone and simultaneously be drowning in self-doubt. One displaces the other. And the beautiful paradox is that the person who has stopped needing to be special, who has found the courage to be ordinary and disliked and exactly who they are, that person is often the most genuinely useful, the most genuinely present, the most genuinely loved. Not because they sought it, but because they stopped blocking it. So as you lie here tonight, let's let the ideas settle gently. You are not the product of your past. You are not pushed forward by old wounds and old stories like a leaf in a current you cannot control. You are choosing, right now, the meaning you give to everything that has happened. And you can choose differently. Not all at once, not perfectly, but genuinely and beginning now. The approval of others is their task. Your life is your task. And living your life in service of managing how others see you is a kind of imprisonment that looks from the outside like responsibility and care but feels, on the inside, like never quite being free. You are allowed to be disliked. Not because other people's feelings don't matter, but because living in terror of their judgment costs you the only life you have. You are allowed to be ordinary. Your worth is not a number that goes up when you achieve and down when you fail. It simply is. It was there before you did anything impressive, and it will be there after. And tomorrow, whenever you find yourself caught in the spiral of self-evaluation, of wondering whether you are enough, whether you are liked, whether you measure up, try turning outward instead. Find one small way to be useful, one moment of genuine presence with another person, one small act of honest contribution. Not to earn your worth, you already have it, but to remember what it feels like to be here for something other than your own approval. That is, the courage to be disliked. A book that asks hard questions in the gentlest possible voice and then waits patiently while you find your way to answers that were always already yours. Let it sit with you tonight. Let it do its quiet work while you sleep. You don't need to figure anything out right now. Just rest. You are already enough to do that. Good night.